Yeah, it's intense study work, it's an intense project. So let's start. We have 6 presenters today, and there will be time for a couple of questions after each of them. So we will, Bonnie, we'll start with Bonnie Knight. Woohoo, Bonnie!
Thank you, Anna. And I know we're watching the clock, and you'll be really good about letting me know about timing. So again, my name is Bonnie Knight. Guys giving me technical equipment. This is dangerous. Thank you. And I just want to first say thank you. Thank you to Chris and to our faculty and our faculty that aren't here with us tonight. Part of the first group going through this program. We're a tight group. We've treaded some new ground, but it's ground that comes from the vision that Chris shared with all of us and opened this opportunity for all of us. And I also want to say thank you to those of you here who are in, as Chris says, the 16 crowd. Who are you? Oh, you guys are. Yes. And I hope that from what we've done in the first year that we've paid it forward a little bit to you. And I think that that is part of this program, to continue to pay it forward to those who are coming into this remarkable program. This is really breaking some ground that's relevant to yoga today. One of the first classes that Chris gave us, and I think it's so key and poignant for me to be in this space right now, because I was introduced to Chris in this room. Started to come into the free lectures. I'm like, free lectures? Awesome, I'm all about free lectures. And then I started to come take classes, and I think it's right below our feet, the extensions room, pretty close. So that's my beginning journey in this path. And then one of the first classes that Chris gave us, he actually, I think was in the downstairs room, had us look out the window, and it's the same window position. Did you share that with?
We just came up from the...
Yes, and to take a look and to say, look at that land, look at the earth, look at the Pacific Ocean, look at the air, see the trees and the wind coming through the tree. And that sense of meditation of the ground that we are living within and taking that all in. So first lessons from Chris that have stayed with me and will continue. The next lesson from Chris. He said, oh, hermeneutics? Holy cow, what is that? Exegesis. Oh man, he's throwing out these hard words at the beginning. And it's so interesting how these hard words became loving words to me because of what they mean. And one definition, science of interpretation, and the exegesis from the Greek word to interpret. But layering that along with a philosophical viewpoint, that what we are doing in this program somewhat, and very relevant to what I did in my project, this is a study and interpretation of human behavior and a social institution called the 200-hour Yoga Teacher Training Program. And it's a discussion of life that comes from that program and what it gives to individuals. So my story from here begins with numbers, and these are the numbers. Are you guys okay? Can you see? All right?
Thank you.
I'll try to block your way much better. So there's 21 million, there's 60,000, 3,700, 267,000, and 31,720. What those numbers mean is that from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, there's 21 million what they call yoga, hi Hannah, yoga users today. 60,000 yoga users are registered yoga teachers. 3,700 are registered yoga schools, 267,000 jobs from the 2012 U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And the median pay for what the U.S. Labor Statistics is $31,720 in a good year, I would think. Right, Miss Sarah? Yeah, we all know that. But this is my story. I'm part of these numbers, and I think we all are part of these numbers. I've been a full-time yoga teacher since 2002. Definitely I'm part of a lower number there. And I've been a co-developer and a co-leader of a yoga teacher training program for the 200-hour level since 2006. And I've guided people through that program 13 times. And my interest for my project came out of that personal experience. We all have this perspective of what the yoga teacher was. And we gain that from our physical therapy studies here at LMU. That traditionally, the yoga teacher was established as a guru and had a student-disciple relationship. The disciple would live with the guru for years and would have his or her competency tested on a daily basis until the guru felt that the lesson had been learned. The yoga teacher now from the U.S. Department of Statistics, that 31,720 medium pay scale, is driven off of this job classification in the category fitness instructor. And this is a job classification is how our country tracks employment and the economics of this particular job. We also have what most of us know is Yoga Alliance. Yoga Alliance was an organization that was created by yoga teachers, and it's created as a nonprofit entity, and it drives somewhat the experience that we have today in our modern yoga user world of what the standards are. And it drives the standards for these categories: the 200-hour teacher training program, the 500-hour teacher training program, hello young guy, and 2 specialty trainings in children yoga and prenatal yoga. And then they also have the standards established for the individual as a yoga teacher. And there's the standards that match up at 200-hour, 500-hour, and they're in between standards of the experience 200-hour level or the experience 500-hour level. And that pretty much are the classifications that we fall within. So as I started to look at what I was investigating, and I will get to that description shortly, I have learned in this program that it serves me well to go back to material and go back to those who have a much deeper understanding of the sense of what yoga is. And it was a great pleasure at the Yoga Sutra conference that was just a couple weekends ago to meet Nishala Joy Devi. Thank you so much, Danielle, for having her come to be with us that day. And this is from her book, written The Secret Power of Yoga, and her definition says that today the world of yoga conjures up the image of some difficult or contorted pose. Once relegated to a few faraway ashrams or caves, it is now practiced in gyms, health clubs, and studios all over the Western world. What is being taught under the name of yoga is a minute part of this great tradition, a microscopic focus on the physical. Yoga in its completeness is a way of life that allows for total transformation. But the physical postures, or the asanas, can serve as an introduction to this distinguished wisdom tradition. Asanas reintroduce us to our bodies. Once we become friends with the physical, going inward to the spiritual becomes easier. I couldn't improve on her description, so I just thought, let's leave it at that description, because it's so wonderful. So this understanding is something that I agree with. that our modern yoga today is very much focused on the postural, that there is an outward sense that it's about the contorted pose and the ability to get there. But as one studies yoga, that it is immediately felt that there is a process of self-transformation that takes place. And the physical body is the most immediate vehicle that allows us to have access to that understanding of a more spiritual meaning for each person. So my investigation was set up on this premise that teacher training program, and I'm looking at people in a teacher training program, is a time for individuals to gain their skills to begin to teach yoga. But layered within that is that there is something else going on that is much more prominent in the process than acquiring the skills to teach yoga. That the individuals participating, and this is just my own viewpoint of what I've seen personally, so it's a small selection of my own experience, that there's something else going on with those participants in the program. And I've defined that something else is going on as a change in a relationship to self, in the quotations of self. So the environment of the investigation that I carried forward was with a small group of 14 in a 200-hour yoga teacher training program, which was conducted in an 8-week time frame period. And this process of self from a yoga practice is a process of self-transformation, self-realization, and self-development. And I came up with these 4 I's that describe what the elements are. And it's one of initiation, of integration, of imagination, and of intuition. And I ran across this wording from a familiar author, again, from much of our readings, from a book that we didn't actually study in this coursework, but I'm sure it's on Chris's bookshelf. I was almost going to call you up to see if you had it. And Ilyadi describing what initiation is. It's a basic change in existential condition which liberates man from profane time and history. Initiation recapitulates the sacred history of the world, and through this reconciliation, the whole world is sanctified anew. The initiate can perceive the world as a sacred work, a creation of the gods. And there are 2 ways. There's a type of initiation and a function of initiation. And in the yoga teacher training program,
Anna's got a question for you.
No, just signaling
the initiation, just give me a time frame. Thanks, Poppin. The initiation is, in fact, taking place because it's a ritualized process. Teacher training is a process for adults who typically don't have many sacred places to go to come to a process that is held in a space that is sacred. That when you're in teacher training and you're doing yoga and it's with the same group of individuals, that there is something going on in that sense that there is sacredness to that space. And in that space, as we all experience when we're on our yoga mat doing our asana practice and pranayama, there is this integration process too, of a integration of wholeness, of completion that's coming to the individual. Imagination is a great part of what we do in our yoga practice because we have to visualize, we have to create this sense of feeling outside of just the physical body doing the movement. And out of all of that, the intuition then has a place to rise. And in that sense of intuition is where I've seen many individuals during a yoga teacher training time take a moment and say, I'm going to make some changes in my life. I've seen people do absolute career changes. I've seen people do within their career some big shifts. And a real extreme example would have been a young lady who sold everything she owned, got a job at a yoga retreat center in Costa Rica, and just took off and went there and did it well for 6 months because she realized that that was what she needed to do. The methodology, again, was a survey that the participants of the 200-hour. It was a survey that was done at the beginning of the 8 weeks, and the same questions were presented at the end of the 8-week program, so there's a pre and a post. And a demographic survey was also provided. I had to apply the package of material through the Loyola Internal Review Board, which is a process that is done anytime you're doing a survey with human beings, and receive their approval. It's designed with 28 questions in these categories of diet, nutrition, exercise and fitness, stress management, and well-being and self-flourishing. Because it was directed at what is the process, what is going on in that sense of self through your teacher training time. And the survey answer scale had this statement on it, which I think it was really key, to indicate the extent to each statement that's true for you during this past month. So it's a very short time frame to reflect what has happened in this recent time period. Using this 5-point scale, and please remember there are no right or no wrong answers. It's kind of like our yoga practice. Okay? There's no right or wrong way to do a Warrior II position, as long as you're feeling secure, safe, and balanced, and that you're getting something back from the pose. Example is a question from the pre and the post. The question was, during the past month, the reason why I eat a healthy diet is because I feel I want to take responsibility for my own health. In the pre-survey, 7 said all the time, 5 often, 2 sometimes. In the post, you begin to see that there's a shift that's more internal. And they're more interested in taking more responsibility all the time. So let me just... Whenever anyone wants to look at any of these later, you may. So the end of these questions, those 28 questions, those 4 categories, my read on that was that the survey is supporting that the experience of yoga teacher training program for the participant is this process of self. And the slight shift in their responses, small survey groups, so it's not valid from a large statistical viewpoint, but you can see the shift from external to internal. And so the questions that arise from this, because I'm not producing any answers, I'm just saying we need to take a look as a yoga community at the 200-hour yoga teacher training program, where I'm seeing that it is more serving the purpose of providing yoga users that opportunity to go into a deeper immersion within the material of understanding yoga. And that perhaps there is something else that needs to occur in a yoga teaching path to give individuals what they need to start teaching. And who does that? We have Yoga Alliance. It's a little like the tail wagging the dog right now. And maybe as interested yoga users in this community at LMU, maybe we will spear the way ahead to make some important changes. In the academic world, we have PhD level, we have the master degrees, other university programs. And maybe it's time to have an undergraduate degree, and Chris and I have had this discussion. Let's get an undergraduate degree around yoga. And I think the difficulty, partially in that discussion that's been ongoing, is where do you position that undergraduate degree, under which college? But there's a lot of numbers supporting it, the beginning numbers. There's government funding, lots of money there, lots of numbers, and there's a lot of private funding too. So my ending thoughts, going back to Nishla, yoga in its completeness is a way of life that allows for total transformation. And a statement that Anna said at the Yoga Sutra conference that I wrote down, because it just resonated. Yoga knowing is a process of becoming. And that's what I see happening in yoga teacher training. So the closing argument is I have my master's degree that says I know what I'm doing. But from the great philosopher, why are you here? And that's it. Thank you all so much. One part.
Okay, the first part you and I have actually discussed at length, I think, a little bit. We look at the Department of Labor's definition of what a yoga teacher is and how it's sort of a fitness instructor. First part is like, what part do you feel, like, having researched Yoga Alliance, what part have they played in the perpetuation or the negation of that as where the federal government actually recognizes yoga instructors,
And actually,
specifically as fitness instructors?
In those stats, the federal government says, that it takes an education of a high school level of education and some sort of certificate program. Yoga Alliance maintains a standardization for that classification.
Oh, so they do use Yoga Alliance even though Yoga Alliance doesn't actually require a high school diploma or anything, anybody can
Right.
go.
Right. Well, the statistics were just saying that based upon the data, that people in that classification primarily have a high school degree, and that's all they reflect on. So, I mean, I think Yoga Alliance now is a professional association, and I think all professions have professional associations supporting them. But are they the driver, are they the dog or the tail driving forward the depth of knowledge and understanding and experience that's going to take care of this thriving 21 million yoga users? Did I answer?
I think so, yeah. And I'll give somebody else a chance to ask, but if there's time, I'll ask you the second part.
Angela and then Jake.
We only have time for these two.
He took your time, sorry,
Oh,
Angela.
my
Sorry, I'll ask you
actually
afterwards.
on top of that one. Do you think that some of that information, though, in relation to yoga fitness instructors comes from our taxes? I mean, because I think that Yoga Alliance is an entity that tracks that, but we have so many people who are not necessarily, let's say, Yoga Alliance certified, who, when they file their taxes, put yoga instructor because they have a certificate and teach, let's say, at a gym. I mean, so how much data is an overlay that isn't just perhaps just Yoga Alliance, which we would hope it to be, and some of it is just, people just saying, I'm a yoga teacher.
Well, I think the Department of Labor and Statistics would be pulling data from 1099s, independent filings, or W-40s, and depending on what that each individual who's filing their tax return writes what their occupation is, that goes into a specific bucket to track.
When you talk about whether it's the dog wagging the tail or the reverse, isn't the real problem for Yoga Alliance is that while they have can set standards, they don't have the resources to enforce it?
Yeah, actually, in my project paper that I'm still working on, I looked at outside of the U.S. and the British Wheel of Yoga and the European Yoga Alliance in Europe their standards. I mean, the British Wheel of Yoga is actually credentialed, and it's within their educational system arm, and they say what their training relevance to is 4 years, like a degree program of training. And they've been around since 1968. They are the predecessors. Yoga Alliance is very, very new. But again, we created Yoga Alliance, the yoga community. And, what it's doing to help us or not help us, I think we can't say that they're outside of us. Because really, we are part of that, or we're part of what's going to move forward, what we're looking to see that we think is needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.